Greetings, I'm Professor Hobo, and welcome to another HOBOTECH News product review. EcoFlow just released a major update to their Delta series power station lineup. This one replaces the 2-year-old Delta 2, and it's called the Delta 3 Plus. While it still offers the same size 1800 watt inverter and 1 kilowatt hour battery as the previous model, this upgraded version rocks a bunch of new features. But is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
Inside, the Delta 3 Plus totes a 1024 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery with 3rd generation cells rated to 4000 cycles to 80%. Note this is 1,000 more cycles than the outgoing Delta 2 model. As for size and weight, it's 16 by 11 by 8 inches, weighing in around 28 pounds, or virtually identical to the outgoing Delta 2 model. As for the design of the display, this EcoFlow sports their new Delta 3 Pro style display with all the same goodies such as input and output watts, time to charge and discharge, battery percent with icon, along with other information. As for the inverter, the D3P, as we'll call it for the remainder of this video, sports an 1800 watt pure sine inverter with 6 outlets, but this inverter is actually a little bit more powerful than the outgoing model in that it has a much higher 3600 watt surge rating and supports up to 2200 watts through EcoFlow's proprietary X-Boost feature, which I suggest my viewers leave disabled as it doesn't work with many appliances. As for ways to charge, the D3P supports the standard ways to charge, including AC wall power or from an inverter generator, at up to 1500 watts, which is fully adjustable within the EcoFlow app. This model also supports EcoFlow's brand new dual fuel 3000 generator that can fully automate charging by starting and stopping that generator as needed. And you can specify in the app how much of the battery you want to charge from the generator, how much you want to charge from solar. Now, at that max charge speed of 1500 watts, you can top this up in less than 1 hour. One thing that's brand new for this model is a pair of 12 to 60 volt MPPT solar charge controllers on the back that support up to 500 watts each. At the 1000 watt max solar rate charge, you can top up this beast in just 70 minutes. Now, this is ridiculously fast solar charging. If you just look back a couple of years ago, the standard charge rate for something like this was like 3 to 4 hours. So we've come a really long way when it comes to solar charging. Now, this same pair of XT60i inputs can also charge from 12 or 24 volt vehicle or third-party battery for some pretty quick speeds. We're going to test this here in a bit. This does include a car charger, which works with 12 or 24 volt vehicles. And like I said, it's XT60i. And you can actually double this up and plug 2 of them in to double your charge rate. Last but not least, this product does support EcoFlow's new 800 watt alternator charger, which plugs into the battery port, and it can top up the Delta 3 Plus in 1.3 hours while you drive. No solar even needed. I do have a separate review of that product if you want to check it out. As for 12 volt output types, the D3P offers the standard regulated 12.6 10 amp car port socket on the back, along with a pair of 5521 3 amp barrel plug outputs. Back on the front where the USB is, another major change in this model is the implementation of the new USB-C Power Delivery 3.1 standard. In English, this means the D3P is the first SoGen on the market that I'm aware of that offers dual 140 watt USB charging ports. This means you can charge 2 MacBook Pros or other high-end laptops simultaneously at an amazing 140 watts each. This essentially future-proofs this product for many years to come as more and more products are coming to the market offering USB power delivery charging. There's also a pair of 18 watt USB-A quick charge ports for charging up standard devices. Now, the D3P, like its older sibling, does have a single battery expansion port, which I've pointed out to you before, built into the back that enables the user to expand the battery capacity with one of several EcoFlow Smart Extra batteries, up to 5 kilowatt hours. The supported batteries are the D3P's own 1 kilowatt hour battery, which is right here. I'll show you that in a bit. Or you can use the original Delta 2 battery. You can also plug in the 2 kilowatt hour Delta 2 Max battery or the 4 kilowatt hour Delta 3 battery. Note, because this product only does have one single battery port, you cannot run an extra battery and the alternator charger at the same time. A lot of people ask about that. One port means you got to pick your poison. And as for the warranty on the Delta 3 Plus, It is the standard manufacturer 5-year warranty from EcoFlow. And of course, we took the Delta 3 Plus here into my secret laboratory where we performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it, including, yes, it's been a while, a double-fisted battery capacity test. As for the results of the DC battery capacity test, it scored 899 watt-hours out of 1024 for a very respectable 88%. As for the AC battery capacity test, it scored 890 watt-hours out of 1024 for an almost identical 87%. As for the phantom load or parasitic drain test, we ran the DC consumption over 12 hours and it used 63 watt-hours over that 12 hours, or extrapolated to 126 watt-hours over 24 hours, making this a very good product for running a 12-volt fridge since it wastes very little power when the DC is left on. Now, that was a completely different story when we ran the AC consumption test. So we had left the inverter on for 4 hours. It used 164 watt-hours, or 984 watt-hours over a 24-hour period. So yeah, if you left this inverter on, it would totally kill the battery in less than a day. This makes it below average, but that can be explained because the inverter on this is nearly double the usable battery capacity, making the ratio of inverter to battery higher than it normally would be on another product. Now the inverter itself, which is 1800 watts, uses what you would typically expect from an inverter of this size. In any case, you're probably going to want to set the inverter timeout on this to 4 hours or less, so if you forget to turn it off, you don't come back to a completely dead battery. Now for anyone curious about the tiny little River 3, I did a quick DC battery capacity test for this as well, and it scored 218 watt-hours out of 245 for a very respectable 89%. Seems to be a trend. Note that the River 3 also has a 20 millisecond UPS feature built into it, and that makes it now the smallest power station in EcoFlow's lineup with a UPS. So if you're looking for a very, very tiny power station that has a UPS feature built in, say to power your computer during a blackout, and you don't want to spend the money to get this, well, that might be an option. So I'm always asked how long stuff's going to run on these power stations. So compensating for usable capacity, you can pause the chart I'm going to put up here on the screen, and you can see approximately how long common appliances will run on this unit. Pure sine wave check under load. We got 120 volts, 60 hertz, perfect sine wave. Inverter capacity test, where we determine how far can we push the 1800 watt inverter. You're gonna watch this number right here for output. All right, we're at 1800, 2000, 2200, 2400, it shuts down with an overload. Next test is the 5-minute sustained cooling or heat soak test, where we push the inverter as hard as we can for at least 5 minutes and make sure it doesn't do anything crazy like smoke or drink or call it some other names, TP the neighbor, or forget to take out the trash. All right, we're gonna go ahead and run it. We're gonna go ahead and run it at just over 1900 watts. Let's go ahead and start the timer, and we'll come back in 5 minutes and see if it survived. Okay, at 1950 watts, it actually conked out at just after 2.5 minutes. So I'm going to reset this test, try again at 1800 watts, which is its rated capacity. All right, we're just a hair over 1800 watts. We restart the timer. Let's see if it makes it 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. We made it 5.5 minutes at 1800 watts, no problems. What's pretty amazing is that I can barely hear this thing running, and I have the inverter pushed to its limit. Let's see how quiet it is. 43 decibels, it doesn't get any quieter than that. So you may ask yourself, what differentiates the Delta 3 from the Delta 3 Plus? Well, the Plus model doesn't mean that it's fat. It means that it has some awesome intakes on the back. So what you do, and this is a cool feature they added to the Delta 3, is the fact you can slide this inside and to expose the ports on the back. But you can see back here you have not just one DC input, but two. So you have two MPPT controllers. They're both 11 to 60 volts, 500 watts each. So this can take up to 1000 watts of solar or two 12 or 24 volt sources at the same time. So you can charge with solar and solar, solar and 12 volts, 12 volt and 12 volt. You can have any combination you like as long as you stick between 11 and 60 volts. And it is 15 amps maximum per port. So let's start this test by plugging in a single XT60i into the first solar controller. And we'll get started with that testing. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug a second one in for step 2. All right, at 12 volts, it takes the entire 15 amps for 166 watts. That's pretty good. That means if you use an XT60i connector, you bypass the built-in 8 amp limit on this device. Typically, if you charge from 12 volts, it limits you to 8 amps. But since I'm using the orange XT60i, it unlocks the potential for 15 amps. So if you are somebody who likes to charge from a 12 volt battery, this is a good way to go, 166 watts. Okay, at 24 volts, it pretty much doubles to 360 watts. All right, at 48 volts, it is now limiting itself to just over 10 amps, and there is the hard cap limit at 500 watts. Now this will allow a 60 volt maximum. Let's take it up to 60 volts. And it is now limiting itself to 8 amps, and we're still hard locked at 500 watts. Let's see how high we can take it before it refuses to charge. And that was it, about 63 volts, and it errors out. It gives me a 202 error, which obviously is going to be over voltage on the solar input. So now let's go ahead and hook up both solar inputs to this same charger and see what kind of results we get. So even at the maximum 60 volts, it's pulling 17 amps. We're hitting the magic 1,000 watts. So this power station will in fact charge at 1,000 watts from solar, or if you have a 60 volt battery. So how loud is the 1,000 watt solar charging on this? Not even worth testing because there are no fans running. It is charging at 1,000 watts, 100% silent. Not sure how they can do that, but it must have one heck of a big heatsink in the back of the solar controller, because I don't hear any fans, and I've been running this for about 2 or 3 straight minutes at 1,000 watts, and usually by now something would kick in. And if it does kick in after a certain long period of time, I would suspect that the fans would be very quiet. So we're going to call this near silent charging. Just like virtually every other modern EcoFlow product, you can adjust using this slider how much you want the power station to charge from AC wall or generator power. This one supports anywhere from 100 to 1,500 watts of charging. So at the maximum 1,500 watts of charging, here it is at its maximum 1,500 watt charge rate. It's still not making any sound. I do hear what sounds like a very slow spinning fan, like something that's actually spinning like this fast. But it's not going to pick up on this whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and wait a couple of minutes at its maximum charge rate and see if it actually makes any noise at all. Okay, I've let it run for several minutes at its maximum charge rate. The fan is so quiet, I don't think it's going to pick up on this. Let's try. Basically 42 decibels, and this room doesn't get any quieter than that because I do have a mini split running on super low. You can't hear it. But yeah, this is pretty amazing. I've never seen such a small product be so quiet, taking so much power. It's just pretty amazing. EcoFlow has really nailed their heatsink technology, which they started using this in the Delta Pro Ultra, where the Delta Pro Ultra can run at 2,000 watts completely silent. And they've taken that technology and put it into these other Delta products. EcoFlow engineers, you guys get a double thumbs up for this one. All right, simultaneous charging. We have it charging from the wall at 1,450 watts. Let's go ahead and turn on the maximum 1,000 watts of solar and see what happens. What's the priority going to be? Is it going to charge any faster? 60 volts of 17 amps of fake solar going in, and it's still only charging at 1,400 watts. So let's go ahead and unplug the charger from the wall, and it drops to its 1,000 for solar. So this is exactly what it looks like then. So this has solar priority. So like a lot of other power stations, this has what's called solar priority. So if you're charging it from the maximum 1,000 watts of solar and then you decide to plug it into the wall or plug it into a generator to charge it as fast as you can, what it's going to do is take 1,000 watts from solar and 400 from AC power. So what it's doing is giving solar priority because that's the greener energy. So they're going to say, let's give it 1,000 watts of solar and then tack on the extra 400 from AC power to give them the maximum charge rate. So There's really not a lot of benefit to simultaneous charging like this, but it is available and you can do it. It's now time for the most controversial power station test on the entire interwebs, and that is the UPS test. I am now doing a PC test instead of a laptop without a battery because too many of you were complaining. So I have a full PC running a 1080p video on YouTube pulling about 40 watts or so while we're charging the power station at the same time from the wall. This claims to have a 20 millisecond or faster UPS or uninterruptible power supply. So if you're on your computer, say you're sitting there watching a cool video like this and the power goes out, your computer should continue to run without interruption or locking up or anything like that. So let's do the countdown. Place your bets. Is it going to keep running or is it going to lock up? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Now the lights blinked in here real quick because I did turn the power off to the charger. It's still running at 42 watts. The video is completely uninterrupted. No problem whatsoever. Let's go ahead and turn the power back on. Say the lightning storm is over, power's on. There it is, it's charging the battery again, no problems. Oops, the lightning went out again. Video still playing, computer is uninterrupted. So this UPS feature works fantastic. Something new for EcoFlow is they put the 12 volt now on the back with its own separate button. This is kind of cool because most people don't want to have this sticking out of the front of their power station anyway. So it is regulated at 12.6 volts. Let's go ahead and see how many amps we can pull from it. There we go, 10 amps, no problem. It does dip the voltage down to about 11 volts, so not cool, but it's still functional. Now you want to see something really epic. This is a world first to my knowledge. This is definitely a first on HOBOTECH. The Delta 3 Plus has a pair of 140 watt USB power delivery outputs. They can output 140 watts each simultaneously. Now, I did do a test on a DJI power station. They claimed to have 140 watt ports. After all kinds of testing and verification with them, they even sent me a special tool. Wasn't 140 watts. These, however, are 140 watts. I have special 240 watt cables coming out of here, going into these new power banks that I got. As soon as I turn on the USB, we should see them both outputting 140 watts into these two power banks. We're actually pulling 282 watts from the power station from 2 USB ports. That's crazy. And just go to show you I'm not going crazy. It says 138 watts there. And here's the other one. I'm not even going to cut this video. I'm just going to show you that this one's 137 watts. So yes, simultaneously 282 watts out of these 2 USB ports. I mean, check that out. That is pretty incredible. Yes, and this means now that if you have one of the latest MacBooks or laptops that can take USB 3.2 charging at 140 watts, you can charge 2 of them simultaneously. Like I said, I believe this is a world first for power stations. I've never seen another one yet that can actually do this. Musician's favorite amp interference test. This is where we determine, is the inverter in the Delta 3 Plus clean or dirty? So place your bets. As soon as I power on the inverter, it's going to go ahead and send power to this. And then we're going to hear, it doesn't make any weird noises, pops, clicks, buzzes, anything like that. 3, 2, 1. All right, perfectly clean. Again, very high quality product from EcoFlow. AM radio interference test. We're gonna see how much AM interference that this power station puts off. So I just set the radio right in front of it, power it on. You can hear there's no change from just powering it on. Let's go ahead and try the DC side first. So we do get a buzz from the inverter whenever we turn it on, but there's no noise from the DC side, so that's good. In fact, the noise from the inverter isn't too bad. Then again, this is a smaller product with a smaller inverter. We don't expect it to be too bad. This next test is the EMF, or electromagnetic interference test. We have a baseline reading of about 2, which is standard for this room. Let's go ahead and power on the power station. We should get a little bit of a spike to start up. Let's turn on the DC circuit, front and back. So with both DC circuits on, we're still only getting around 10 to 12. It's not too bad. Let's put on the inverter. Okay, with the inverter arm, we are pegging 80, 81. So that is somewhat high. Turning off the inverter, let's get a baseline with just the DC on. We're back down to about 10. So we do have some electromagnetic interference from the inverter. The rest of the DC side and having it powered on, not a big deal. Last but not least, the elephant in the room. Yes, I know you guys have been staring at this extra battery for the entire section of this testing. We're finally going to hook it up. So here's what's pretty awesome about the new Delta 3 Plus. This is 1,000 watt hours. This little tiny battery is also 1,000 watt hours. So when you take the inverter and all the other junk out, the battery is very small and lightweight. You can see just, and it's a pretty nice looking battery too. This whole machine is really nice looking. It's very slick and modern. I like the silver color with the black. Now you can turn on the battery individually and you can see that it has a little light bar that tells you how much it's charged up. So that's kind of neat. Now I don't have it hooked up. It's going to power itself down in a few seconds. But here is the best part of the new EcoFlow Delta 3. Yes, you guys don't have your eyes crossed. They are finally after, what, 5 years, including 90-degree angle cables. Thank you, EcoFlow, thank you. This is how it should have been from the beginning. Nice thin cable, very easy to plug in, 90-degree bends. So I'm going to show you just how easy this is. Just like the power station, this has the flap that comes down and then goes into the power station. Again, brilliant design. You just push that into there, push that into there. Look at that. You can actually bend this out of the way, put this up against a wall or any kind of other small space, and guess what? You now don't have a bunch of cables sticking out of the side. You don't have to put this in some weird configuration. This snaps right into the top. So you can see it's nice and stable. It's not going to go anywhere. Now the only downside to this is it seems like this can only handle one battery. So yeah, you can double your power to 2 kilowatts. It'd been nice if they would have given you an option to put an extra battery up there as well, but not for the Delta 3 Plus, because this is one of their smallest power stations. In fact, this is the smallest power station above their River series. Now that we got the battery plugged in, let's go ahead and power it up and see what happens. It automatically powers on the extra battery, and it does actually say port on here, which means it does hook up to the battery port. You can see it's actually transferring power from this battery to this battery because this battery is much lower charged than this one. This is 57%. 10.2 hours. Now let's go ahead and power this off. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the battery from the top. Very easy to do. Unlike some of the competition that has like little lock buttons and all that annoying stuff. Says 82%. It does automatically recalculate depending on if you have a battery hooked up to it or not. So that is pretty cool. You're always supposed to turn these off before you hook up the battery. Now it just switched to 3.1 days. So it not only recalculates the percentage between the two batteries, but it also recalculates the amount of runtime. So it actually changed to 3.1 days because it's taking into account this extra battery. So you can see this battery as it charges because power is coming from this to this. Now the downside to the EcoFlow extra battery, if you noticed, no other features whatsoever. You cannot charge this battery separately. Let me say this again. There is no other way to charge this battery without hooking it up to something else that's either an EcoFlow power station or the alternator charger. I'm guessing could probably charge this because it's the same kind of battery port. But there is no other external way outside of using the EcoFlow line of products to charge this. You can't plug solar into it. You can't plug it into the wall. You can't do anything with it. In fact, there's no USB ports, USB-C or A. There's nothing on it. It's literally one button, a blinking LED, and a battery port. That is all you get. Now, to some of you, that might be a pretty big negative. They do cut all this stuff out to keep the weight, size, and cost down, so I guess it depends on what's more important to you. Okay, EcoFlow asked me to show you guys this real quick. This is the new River 3, so it's part of the new number 3 lineup. This is a tiny little thing. I mean, it's super lightweight. It's 245 watt hours. It does have a 12-volt battery socket on it, a 100-watt power delivery output, 2 USBs, and it does offer a 300-watt inverter. So tiny little power station. You're not going to do a lot with this, but you can actually charge a laptop, charge your phones, run a little tiny refrigerator off of it. It does charge directly from AC power. It does have an XT60 port on it for charging from solar. It's only going to take, I think, 100 watts of solar, my understanding. Now, nowadays, it goes without saying, all of EcoFlow's products, you can actually use their app to control them remotely if you want to. It's optional, it's not required. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention. EcoFlow did send me a specific gas propane dual fuel generator for this. I don't really have the time to unbox it and put it up on the table and talk about it and hook it up. It's just like all their other dual fuel generators. There's really no difference except that it works with the new Delta 3 lineup. You can check it out if you're interested in dual fuel gas propane generators. If you want to charge this up with a generator, it does charge directly with DC through the DC port. That's what makes it special. You're not actually charging this from AC power when you're running that generator. It's DC to DC. It makes it very efficient. Those things are super quiet. But in any case, not going to spend any time on that either. This video is already long enough. And we're trying to keep the focus on the Delta 3 Plus because this is what you guys really want, isn't it? So what do I think about the Delta 3 Plus? Well, the pros list is actually pretty dang long. First, this is by far the quietest mid-range solar generator I've ever tested on this channel. Now, yeah, I've tested a few fanless designs way back in the day, but those were like little tiny micro power stations. They weren't mid-sized power stations with honking 1800 watt inverters. Technology has come a really long way in the past couple of years. This thing has true 1800 watt output and barely makes a sound while charging or discharging. So if you're one of those people that just hate noise, you're going to absolutely love the Delta 3 Plus. It's also, to my knowledge, the world's first dual USB power delivery 3.1 power station. And that actually outputs 140 watts simultaneously from both ports. I hope EcoFlow implements this in all their future models because this is where things are going in the future, USB powered devices. That 12 volt on the back is going way to the dodo. So let's talk about the Delta 3 extra battery. As you can see, this thing clips right in there super easy. This is a brand new design. It's exceptionally small and lightweight compared to the previous model, and as you can see, it's truly stackable. This makes it far more user-friendly and easier to manage in small spaces like an RV or van. So if I needed a kilowatt-hour power station in my RV, this is probably the one I would grab now. Oh, and these 90-degree battery cables, mwah! It's about time, EcoFlow. The best decision EcoFlow has ever made, though, is putting the AC outlets on the front. This is the #1 reason why in the past I really don't use mid-size EcoFlows when I go camping. And I know that sounds odd, but in a small RV, you want all the outputs facing the front so you can push this thing up against the wall or on the back of a counter. Otherwise, you have to have it at a funky, like slanted angle like this to put your power cords and stuff in the back. And then sometimes you can't even see the screen. So while it sounds very strange, it's kind of a big deal for me to take these things camping. So I'm going to definitely take this on my next trip. And you know what? Having the 12 volt on the back now actually makes the most sense. These are very welcome changes in my opinion. And speaking of its backside, these dual XT60i inputs, again, fantastic design decision. This lets you charge from 2 different DC power sources simultaneously, whether that's a 12 volt car, a 48 volt external battery, or a 60 volt solar panel. And I also adore the little sliding port. Isn't that like the coolest thing ever? Now, as for the cons, I really had to stretch because this is almost a perfect product. It is a little bit of a bummer that EcoFlow only put that one single battery port in the back, because that means the user has to decide between using an extra battery or plugging in the alternator charger. You can't do both at the same time. And yeah, you can unplug one to plug in the other, but when you're driving, like, how are you going to do that? It's just a major hassle. I think everything in the Delta 3 series should have actually had 2 battery ports on it so everyone can use that incredibly popular alternator charger. I mean, everybody's buying that thing up. It allows them to charge 800 watts while driving, which is pretty incredible. Now, the one upside to the Delta 3 Plus is that now it can support multiple smart extra batteries. So you can put a 1, 2, or 4 kilowatt hour battery on the back of this and expand this thing up to 5 kilowatt hours total. So that's actually pretty impressive. Now, I do have a minor gripe, and that's going to be that 60 volt limit on MPPT controllers. When you're trying to hit that magic 500 watt with larger solar panels in series, you really can't put two bigger solar panels together because they're going to exceed that 60 volts. Now, you're kind of forced to put them in parallel and hope you don't hit that 15 amp wall, which again, that's also pretty easy. So it would have been nice to at least bump up the max voltage on the MPPTs to at least 80 or 90 volts for more solar panel flexibility. Again, it's a minor gripe, not a big deal. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say volts and amps and watts and your head is going to explode, I have a new 3-part educational series on YouTube called HOBO University, where I teach you everything you need to know about these concepts so you can educate yourself on what solar panels work with what power stations, how to DIY design your own system, how to do the basic math to figure out your own power needs. So check out those videos. I have those linked in the description of this video. All right, product price. It's actually not as bad as you think. As of the filming of this video, the pre-order price for this product is only $649. That's a paltry 63 cents per watt hour, and that's an incredible deal for a new release from EcoFlow. Usually they're around 80, 90 cents, even $1 per watt hour, so 63 cents, it's a steal. Now, it gets even better than that because HOBOTECH viewers, since you guys are so awesome, now have an additional 5% off that price when you apply my discount code at checkout. And note that this 5% off code also works on the tiny little River 3 if you're interested in that. This deal is only valid until October 30th, so don't wait till Christmas to pick one of these up. You're going to want to do it sooner than later. So if you're interested in one of the best mid-sized power stations on the market today, the link and discount code is going to be in the description of this video below. I'm also going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen along with a QR code that you can scan on your mobile device if you're watching me on TV. And it'll take you on over to the EcoFlow store page where you can check out the fantastic Delta 3 Plus. Thanks for watching. If you learned something today, don't forget to give me that thumbs up below. And if you're not a subscriber already, you know what to do. That's it for now. Till next time.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.